Coaches, I want to welcome you back to sort of an unconventional episode of Big World. We are in an exciting time here in football. Exciting time as far as the college football fan goes. I've been taking some time crunching numbers, seeing where teams rank in terms of their offensive line play, and seeing teams where teams rank in terms of how I would rate their defensive line play, and just seeing if it comes down to a battle in the trenches. I know there's other factors, but if it comes down to a battle in the trenches, who's going to win this college football playoff? And I got some predictions. We're going to go right to them. The stats I've sort of dove into most just to sort of give you like how I do offensive line rankings when it comes down to colleges is I like to see where you rank in terms of yards per carry for rush, um, and where you rank in terms of sack percentage. How many times when you drop back, because that sort of takes away, I think, those teams that are more triple option based or more heavy run based will get sort of a benefit when you only drop back 10 times a game or even less. If you watched Army Navy this past Saturday, if you drop back very few times, but you still get sacked twice, it's not as good as if you drop back 40 times and get sacked three times, in my opinion. So, we're going to take a look. We're going to dive into it. Some interesting stuff to come out of this. So I'm going to pull up a bracket. We're going to see what we see. All right. So pulling up a bracket now. First matchup I want to get into comes with, so I move my face out of the way. So we're going to come here. We have Indiana versus Notre Dame. All right. So putting together Indiana versus Notre Dame, who's going to win that matchup? Okay. Some interesting stats to take a look. Notre Dame, very strong when it comes to yards per carry. When I looked at yards per carry for Notre Dame, we were looking at them ranked first in the college football playoff teams, second in the nation at 6.3 yards per carry, 7.3 yards per carry in their last three games. They are on fire right now when it comes to pounding the football and running the rock. Well, let's look at who they're playing. They're playing Indiana. How's Indiana match up? Number two in the country in rush yards per carry when it comes to the defensive side of the football. 2.6 yards per carry, 2.3 in their last three games, and that's with some tough opponents here previously in their last three games. So you got strength versus strength on that matchup on Friday night. I think that's going to be a fun game. I'm a Notre Dame fan. I'm biased. I like Notre Dame. But, I think that game's going to be a lot closer than the experts think. I'm not sure what the point spread right now is, but give me the Irish. I'm going to go Notre Dame 24, Indiana 17. Book it right there. All right. And again, I would say your battle right there is going to be in the trenches. Who's going to win? And does Indiana stop Notre Dame's run game? Um, SMU and Penn State. So what's Penn State looking like when we take a look? Let's look at the home team, give them the advantage that they need to get. Okay. When we take a look at their rankings, when it comes down to sack percentage, when it comes down to rushing yards per carry, okay, Penn State averages right now 5.3 yards per carry, which is pretty darn good. That's good enough to put them in the top 15 in the country. Same thing in sack percentage, giving up a sack 3.19% of the time. SMU on defense, by comparison, when they are on their rush defense, they are number three in the country, number two in our college football playoff rankings, with just 2.8 yards per carry, including 2.1 recently here, even with that ACC championship game loss to Clemson. And on sack percentage on the defensive line front, right now, they are getting a sack, getting home 7.72% of the time, so good for 31st in the country. I'd say Penn State probably has a slight advantage, but not as much as you would think there. All right, let's go with Penn State's defense versus SMU's offense. When you look at SMU's offensive rankings here, they are, I'm trying to see if anything really stands out. Probably yards per carry. Right now, they're banging out at 4.2 in their last three games. This is where they struggle offensively at 3.8 yards per carry. So while their defense should hold stuff, I don't know if their offense is humming right now. Their sack percentage is still at 3.28, but their offensive ranking in terms of yards per carry is only in the 70th in the nation. They're going to be going up against a defense in Penn State that's 13th in the nation and shutting down the run. So I bet you SMU's running game shut down. They're also 23rd in the country with 8.15% of the time getting home with the sack. I'm going to say Penn State. I said Notre Dame 124-17. I'm going to say Penn State, and it's not even going to be that close. I'm going to go Penn State 35, SMU 14. Okay, James Franklin, even though he gets a nickname for not winning big games, I think he beats who he's supposed to beat. Let's look at that 8-9 matchup, that Tennessee versus Ohio State. All right. How does the Buckeyes offense, coming off that loss to Michigan, how do they rank compared to the Tennessee defense? Well, when it comes down to rushing yards, Ohio State's 26th in the country. They got that pretty tough monster when it comes to run backs. They sort of ran into a brick wall against Michigan. Their yards per carry for the year at 5.0 in the last 3 games, dropping to 4.1. So losing almost a yard per carry in the last 3 games. Good enough for 26th in the country, though. Sack percentage wise, good enough for 18th in the country, giving up a sack 3.37% of the time. How's that compared to the Vol defense? The Vols, 6th in the country in yards per carry on the defensive side, 2.9 yards per carry. In terms of getting home, they're 27th in the country, 7.9% of the time they're getting home. So I'm going to say that's about a lock. That's about even right there at Tennessee defense versus that Ohio State offense. When it comes to the battle of the trenches, let's go and flip and put Ohio State on defense, put Tennessee on offense. So we're going to go Ohio State on defense, or Tennessee on offense first. Tennessee 5.0 yards per carry, right there, even about with the Buckeyes, 29th in the country. They are picking it up and have 5.4 yards per carry. So pushing towards that sixth realm. Good yards per carry there in terms of rushing offense there. And also, when it comes down to their sack percentage, though, this is where Tennessee kind of 90th in the country, giving up a sack 7.45% of the time when they drop back. Again, football's not winning stats, but that's bad. And then we flip it over. What's Ohio State? Oh, they're number 2 in the country at getting home and rushing the passer. 10.51% of the time, they're getting home. Interesting. They're also number 5 in the country, number 2 in our college football playoff rankings at rush yards per carry. Oh, interesting. Ohio State wins. In fact, we'll call it. I'm going to say Ohio State's offense struggles more than they would expect. We're going to go 17-10, Ohio State over Tennessee. It's been boring. I picked 3 home teams in this first era of the college football playoff. I think your best shot at a road victory right now, could it be Clemson? Clemson has some experience in playing in big games. Texas having a little bit of quarterback controversy. Let's see when it comes to Clemson's offense. Clemson, 7th in our college football playoff rankings at 4.9 yards per carry, been up for 35th in the nation. So you're seeing a lot of those top teams running the ball well. I think what I've seen by these rankings is defense sort of tells the tale. Most of the time, those guys are going to be in the tops of defense. Defense tells the tale, but you see a lot of the upper teams being able to run the ball well. Sack percentage wise, when it comes to Clemson, we're looking at 32nd in the country, so they're okay on offense. Texas, when it comes to their defense, they're getting after the passer 9.2% of the time, 10th in the country. They're shutting down the run game. Okay, they're 7th in the country, 3.1 yards per carry. You meet Texas's defense over Clemson's offense. When it comes down to the Clemson defense, this is where, sort of the rubber meets the road here. Clemson ended up 77th in the country, 12th in college football playoff rankings in terms of how many yards per carry they give up. So while Texas is only getting 4.5 yards per carry, Clemson's giving up 4.5 yards a carry. So, and then what about sack percentage? Texas is giving up a sack. They're pretty bad. This is the bad end of the ball. Texas right now is 56 in the country and giving up sacks. That's bad. When you take a look and see how is Clemson getting home, not good either. 50th in the country, 6.7% of the time, 9.35% of the time here lately. Closer than the experts think. Clemson goes into Texas and loses a close one. Texas 24, Clemson 21. Now we move to the next games, okay? So, Ohio State versus Oregon. I've told you about the Buckeyes. The Buckeyes are solid on the run. They're even better on the defensive side of the ball. What's Oregon look like? Well, when Oregon runs the ball, they average right at 4.9, so they're about even with the Buckeyes, who are averaging at 5.0. Remember, this game was matched up with earlier in the year. Oregon only giving up a sack 2.65% of the time, sixth in the country. So I would give your offensive edge there to Oregon over the Buckeye defense. But it's going to be interesting. Your matchup there is going to be that Oregon offensive line versus that Buckeye defensive line. Do the Buckeyes get home? I'm going to give a slight edge to Oregon. When it comes down to defensively, what's Oregon's defense like? They give up 55th in the country. I'm checking my stats here. 55th in the country, 4.1 yards per carry in terms of rush defense. When it comes to getting home, they get home 8.48% of the time, picked it up at 13% of the time recently. I'm going to give the edge to the Ohio State offense. So I think we're going to get a shootout this time. I think you're going to get 38-35. Give me the Buckeyes. Buckeyes upset Oregon. Ohio State 38, Oregon 35. All right, Texas, Arizona State. I've told you I was iffy on Texas winning. This is probably the iffiest matchup I'm with on here. Arizona State, 4.8 yards per carry, just slightly off. 39th in the country in rushing. They're 41st in the country in giving up sacks, so they're okay offense. Okay, not elite. Give it okay. Okay offensive line. Defensively, 121st in the country in getting after the passer. That's going to be weakness versus weakness, in my opinion, when you have Texas's offensive line versus Arizona State's defensive line. And then they are 33rd in the country in rush yards per game, giving up 3.8 yards per carry. I'm very, very tenuous here. Gosh. Give me Texas just because of the experience. Give me Texas. I'm going to go 27-20 over Arizona State. Now we have Notre Dame versus Georgia. I already told you I'm a Notre Dame fan. Notre Dame can run the ball. Notre Dame is solid against the run, solid against the pass. And they can run the ball. Big thing is Notre Dame can run the football. How does UGA look? I mean, Georgia's Georgia, baby. UGA was last among college football playoff contenders, 82nd in the country in yards per carry. Ooh, that's interesting. UGA was 31st in the country in sack percentage. Nothing elite, just average, amongst these teams. How about getting home? 7.73%. They're 30th in the country there. How about rush yards per carry when it comes to a defensive standpoint? UGA, 32nd in the country. So a good, not necessarily a great defense. Versus an elite rushing attack. And they don't have a rushing attack. Carson Beck's hurt. Give me the Irish. Give me Notre Dame to go and upset in the Sugar Bowl the Georgia Bulldogs. So I'm going to go Notre Dame 21, UGA 17. All right. I think we got that's some elite versus good right there when it comes down statistically. Watch me get proven wrong, but I'm going to go Notre Dame. Boise State versus Penn State here. How does Boise look in all these rankings? To me, if you're going to play inferior competition, you got to look pretty good. They kind of do. When you got the best run back in the country, you average 6.1 yards a carry. Notre Dame still averages more, but Boise State's third in the country. Sack percentage, they're number 2 in the country, 3% of the time. Oh boy. All right. How about rush defense? Rush defense. How the Boise State? They can't be as good in defense. Top 24 rush defense. Okay. How about getting this home on the sack? Number 3 in the country. The only thing I'm iffy about there is their rush defense, but it's in the Fiesta Bowl, and Boise State has 3 Fiesta Bowl wins. Let's make it a 4th. Boise State, 38. Penn State, 28. All right. So now, weird matchups. You have Ohio State versus Texas. All right. I have been iffy on Texas through 2 wins. I think they had an easier bracket. I think Oregon's better than that. I would go Ohio State here, and this is predominantly based on can they turn it around from a crappy Michigan game. I think Ohio State's probably your better team in the country. They get after the passer. Texas does not do a good job protecting the passer. That's what's going to change it in terms of who wins that trench game, I think. Ohio State's better at running the rock. They're better at getting after the passer. Ohio State's better at defending the run. Ohio State, I don't even think you'll be that close. 28-17. All right. Last one. Our last semifinal, Notre Dame versus Boise State. This is good. These are 2 elite teams when it comes to running the football. Okay. The Boise State Broncos are an elite team. I think this is almost one of those matchups where most of the country will be rooting for Boise State because who roots for Notre Dame besides Notre Dame fans, being one of them? Boise State just gets after the passer. They rush the ball. They protect. Give me Boise State in a tight one. Boise State be 21-20 over Notre Dame. All right. The Broncos versus the Buckeyes for the title. Now, when it comes down to this, I'm going to tell you the Cinderella story ends there. Ohio State, one of these things that we don't take into consideration here is just how good those receivers are. So Ohio State, probably the best receivers in the country. I think they get it together. I think Ohio State wins the national championship. I'm going to go 35-21 over Boise State. Ohio State lifts the trophy, wins it all. That's the big Drew of the World prediction. At the end of the year, we're going to come back, see what we did, see what the adjustments were made, see how everything went with the college football playoff. I think we can do some good content with this. We're also going to give out a reward at the end of the year to the best offensive lines in the country. We're going to go top 10 offensive lines in the country. And we're going to talk all about it. All right. Until next time, coaches, remember, bigs rule the world.